How's it going, Eliminators? Today, I'm going to be showing you a super simple little trick that I use to remove valves and valve springs from an L-head engine. With that being said, let's get right into it. So I'm in the process of redoing the valves on this John Deere TRS 26 that has a Tecumseh HMSK 80 engine on it. Now, the trick that I'm going to show you on how to easily remove and install the valves only applies to what's known as an L-head engine. And an L-head engine is essentially an engine that's been designed to incorporate the valves within the engine block, so they run alongside of the cylinder there. You guys can see it. And to access the valve springs, you normally have this access port that also serves as your breather tube. So there's your crankcase breather hole right there. And then you would normally have a breather tube coming out of here to vent that positive crankcase pressure. And the L-head engine design is not only used on a vertical Tecumseh snowblower engine, but also on Briggs and Stratton horizontal engines that they use for their lawnmowers. So you guys will most likely remember these engines from my Why You Should Torque the Head Bolts video that I did. And on these engines, they're basically the same design. The valves follow alongside the cylinder, and the only difference is your valve access port is going to be on the side there. So this trick that I'm about to show you will also work on an L-head lawnmower engine. Now, in order to go ahead and clean up those valve seats or the valve face themselves, you have to remove the valves, and in order to remove them, you have to compress the spring to remove what's known as a valve spring retainer. So I have a spare valve here from another Tecumseh engine. We have the valve stem that goes through a rubber cap there, and basically that acts as a wiper to wipe away any oil that is sticking to the valve stem so that it doesn't go into the combustion chamber and burn off. Coming down, you have your valve spring, and then at the end here, you have what's known as your valve spring retainer. And that valve spring retainer is what retains the valve from popping off of the end of the valve stem there. Now, this valve stem retainer has a very simple design. The center section there has a smaller diameter, and that's what locks itself into the valve stem. And then you can see that there's a larger section on the top there, and then that's what's going to allow you to pull the valve through. Now, even when both valves are in the closed position, so I currently have the flywheel rotated so that the piston is just starting to go down on what's known as the power stroke. So both valves would normally be closed here. The springs are still under a slight amount of tension. That's what holds them into position. Now, in order to remove that valve, you have to compress the spring so that you can go ahead and remove the retainer and then pull your valve out. Now, normally what you would use to do that would be this valve spring compression tool. Now, even though this is a Tecumseh engine, I have in front of me what's known as a fork style valve spring compressor. And this is a Briggs and Stratton part number 19063, and the cost is about $30 Canadian. In today's video, I'm basically going to be showing you how to save a little bit of money by using a tool that you've seen me use in the past. And yes, it is the return of the wooden trim removal tool. So you guys probably saw the video on my fuel line removal tool, and that's basically this tool right here. So normally it has a V cut into it, but we've gone ahead and ground out the center part there. And this is what we use to remove a fuel line right from the carburetor. And I'm going to be showing you guys how simple it is to go ahead and remove and then install a valve on one of these L-head engines with this cheap little tool that I ended up buying for, I believe it was like $1.50 or $2 at my local Princess Auto, which in the United States would be similar to a Harbor Freight. Now, the section that we went ahead and ground out is wide enough to allow this tool to go under the valve and tap it right there. And essentially what we're going to be doing is simply prying up on this and then pulling it out to allow the valve to slip through that little opening there. And it's super simple, guys. I'm going to show you this hopefully in one take. Basically, we're just going to lift up and push back, and then just like that, we can go ahead and might have to pry up just a little bit, but you should be able to go ahead and pull out your valve just like that. And then hopefully in the same shot here, I'm going to go ahead and put the valve back in, drop it into that little slot there, and then again go in with my tool, and we're simply just going to get underneath the valve spring there, and we're going to pry up and pull back, And just like that, we have removed and reinstalled the valve into the engine. As super simple as that. And I'm telling you guys, instead of going out and buying that $30 valve spring compressor, go ahead and get yourself one of these tools. Multi-use, totally awesome. Like I said, $2. Take a little, die grinder or a Dremel and grind away that center section. And this tool comes in handy. I use this literally every day in my shop. It works for both the exhaust valve on this side and the intake valve. Basically, like I said, all you're doing is rotating that piece to an angle and then pulling it out to allow that valve to pop through that little opening there on the retainer. And just one little piece of information to make it a little bit easier on yourself. Go in with a light before you get to the point where you're ready to remove the valve. And what you want to do is position the slot or the opening either to the back, or you want to position it to the front, just like that. And as you can see here, hopefully I can get a shot of it, but the slot is at the front right there. So basically what you saw me do was press up on it and then rotate it back to the point where the valve simply was just able to pull out. And that's it, guys. Super simple like that. I'm currently waiting for parts for this valve job to be complete. So this video will most likely be up next week or the week after. I'm not too sure. I have a bunch of equipment in the shop now from various manufacturers that is unfortunately all waiting on back-ordered parts, whether it be John Deere, Tecumseh, MTD, Husqvarna, pretty much all manufacturers. Even Sten's has some stuff that's back ordered right now. And, unfortunately, I can't control those things. But I did want to share this video with you today because, again, guys, this little wooden trim removal tool comes in handy so often and ends up saving me a ton of money. And like you saw, even though I do have the official tools and the right tool for the job, where you would normally go in on that valve spring and then you'd have to tighten this up to compress the spring, and then you'd have to go in there and position the retainer yourself anyways. Like I said, you go ahead and get one of these and that's it. You saw just how quick it was. Couple seconds, that valve comes out. And at that point, you'd be able to, go ahead and cut your valve seat or lap your valve in. I'm going to be going over all of that information on the full valve job video once that's up. Like I said, hopefully within the next week or so. So just a quick little video today, but super simple to do. Save yourself a little bit of money. Go buy yourself one of those wooden trim removal tools for very cheap. Like I said, Princess Auto, Harbor Freight, they all carry them. You can probably get them on eBay for real cheap. And you guys saw I did it in one take. I kind of wanted to do that just to show you how quick and simple it is to go ahead and remove that valve and then reinstall it with that tool. But with that being said, if you guys enjoyed the video, think about leaving me a thumbs up. It really helps me out. You can click here to subscribe and click over here to watch one of my previous videos. I upload every single week, so be sure to stop on by next week. Check channel out for new content. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.